Evening all. Right, a little bit of a different live stream tonight. As you can see, I'm not just sat in front of a tank. I'm a little bit further away than normal. If you didn't know, I am up at Tropco today, doing a bit of a special. So the plan really is to let you guys have a bit more of an understanding about Goop. And I thought I can say as much as I like, but people will never believe me because they'll just assume that I'm in someone's pocket, which you'll be told shortly I'm most definitely not. So I thought the best thing here was to have the people who really know their stuff come and talk to you directly. So great fun. We're having a bit of fun, of course, because we've just turned off all the power, so we can hear you guys. And it does mean that Tropco's alarms are now going off. So if someone has to run away in a minute, panic not. So I thought I'd let everyone
to know the systems work.
Exactly. So I'll let these chaps introduce themselves. You probably know a couple of them already, but the man to my left you probably don't. So we'll start with you, boss.
Hello, right, I'm Andy Lintott. I own, for my sins, Tropco, Carpco and now Nitrico. I've been a fish farmer for 32 years. I had an aquatic centre, or two aquatic centres for over a decade. And then in the last 5 years we've had Tropco. And Nitrico is the next thing for us.
Nice one. This is the man you need to know about.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm Andy's right-hand man. I've worked here for 15, 20 years probably. And yeah, I'm the sort of guy that developed the Nitrico Goop and filtration system.
He's the brains.
I don't know about that.
And last, but by no means least,
Sean, the Tropco manager, deal with the day-to-day running of this, really.
cool. So Sean's the man you see me tagging left, right and centre whenever you lot are asking, oh, did Tropco have one of those? So the plan for this really, guys, this video is going to be very much focused on Nitrico. Obviously, Tropco, if you want to follow them, have a look on their page, please follow them. Sean regularly comes and does tours of the fish house, so you can see what's going on here. Is it 1,100 tanks?
1104.
1,104. Very precise, don't forget the 4. 1106. 1106 tanks in this building, so not a small quantity. Obviously, if you want to learn a little bit more about Tropco, please follow the page. But for us today, the plan is to focus on this stuff, which if you've never seen, I will show you there. There you are, Nitrico Goop, the fancy stuff, the magic stuff, and I'm just going to make sure no one's commented going, we can't see you or something. No, life is good. Brilliant. So, first things first, and I guess I'll make this anyone's question, really, is where did Goop come from? What was the idea for Goop? What was the inspiration to go, oh, we could be on something here?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So I think it was more me than anything else. When we first decided, when we first started Tropco, we started it with 300 aquariums, and each bank of about 30 odd aquariums was a system, and we ran that for 3 or 4 months before we realised that it really wasn't going to be big enough for what we were doing. So then we sort of sat down and decided that we needed to build a proper fish house, which is currently what we're sitting in. But also during those discussions I said I really do not want systems. We want to be able to run every single tank independently with the ability to sterilise after every batch of fish. Now obviously, anyone who knows anything about filtration, sterilising a tank after a batch of fish it doesn't tend to be a viable option. And so that was one of the first things. I think I sort of said, this is what I want to do. I then made it Jack's problem. And so from there, with the help of government research and development grants or tax relief, which definitely helped.
Absolutely.
Jack developed the Tropco bioreactor, purely at that time just to provide us with sponge filters, so that we could, every batch of fish that came in would have a new sponge filter. As soon as that tank was empty, we'd take the sponge filter out, we actually put it through a washing machine on a boil wash, and then it goes back into the Tropco bioreactor. And that's what we ran for 2.5 years before
yeah.
one of us came up with the stupid idea that this was a commercially viable product. So yeah, that's sort of it really. That's where it started.
Amazing. And I should say, guys, if you've not looked at Tropco, if you've not visited Tropco before, every single one of those 1,106 tanks is individually filtered. So it's not like when you go into, for example, a Pets at Home or a Maidenhead or any other shop that's running banks where you've normally got, 3 rows of 3 and they're all running off one sump. Every single tank here is individually isolated. Every net is dipped between every single fish. Am I right in saying the nets are specific to the bay as well? So these guys really do take biosecurity quite seriously. I'm not just saying that, but I get to visit a lot of shops up and down the country, and there are very, very few that I see running individually filtered. I think I know of 4 or 5 that I've been to, and none of them are on this scale. So that's just something really to be aware of. So anyway, on to the subject of Goop. So Goop has been, I think, it's a bit of a Marmite product, I think I'm probably fair in saying. There's an awful lot of people that I think the minute it came out said, oh, it's another load of nonsense. It's another snake oil product. And I mean, there's a good reason for that. You guys will all know this. The number of products we see on the market that promise to instantly cycle your filter, that promise to instantly give you complete denitrification, even through to nitrates, which is a complete fallacy. People use them and they don't work. I mean, how many of us have been in that situation where we've gone, oh, hang on, there we are. How many of us have been in that situation or known someone in that situation where they bought a fish tank, they've waited 24 hours, they've chucked in a magic potion, pressed go, thrown some fish in, and then the next day it's helped my fish are dying. Yeah, we see it so often. And the reason is, I've said it before, a lot of these products, they get made, they have something done to them, they go in a bottle, they go from factory conditions to a warehouse, to the back of a truck, to another warehouse, to the back of another truck, all the way to a store where they might sit at ambient temperature for God knows how long. Is it no surprise those bacteria, by the time you actually pour them out, are dead? So we as aquarists and hobbyists have had a very long time of knowing for a fact that bottled products are crap. This one is a little bit different. This is the main difference, and why it's so different to all these other bottled products. So, I mean, I suppose the next place is, why is Nitrico different? Why is Goop different to a bottled product that's on the shelf right now? So, that's a Jack question if ever I've heard one, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's lots of differences between the two products, or a lot of the bottled products from not going to mention names, but
we all know them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've tested lots of them. Most of them we found lacking. Most of them, the stuff that's clear gels, blue gels, that sort of thing, just looking at the product should ring alarm bells and go, there's not enough of anything in there. Even if it was the right bacteria from testing, it's not the right bacteria.
Yep.
There's just not enough material to make a difference to an aquarium or anything like that. A lot of these products do contain live bacteria that is in suspended animation. The downside is the bacteria in them is not the right bacteria. Generally, it's a pseudomonad or a bacillus type bacteria. That means that they're not telling lies when they say they break down ammonia. And
absolutely.
They break down nitrite.
No, they will happily eat that stuff.
Because a lot of them will. And as a product, it's actually quite a clever thing to do because you need to keep adding these things. Yeah. The pseudomonads and bacillus won't replicate in your tank, and they won't live beyond sort of 4 or 5 days in your aquarium. They won't multiply. What it will do is buy you time. So if you've got a tank and you put fish in, you can keep adding some of these products, and they will have some effect at reduction.
Gotcha.
So they're not technically telling lies, but it's not the right bacteria, and it's certainly not starting your filter.
No.
I think the concept behind it is they buy you time as a stopgap, and in that time, nature takes over and will slowly colonise your filter.
Yeah.
So, pre this product, I think it was not a terrible thing.
No.
And obviously, we've wanted products like Nitrico Goop and like our phones. We're fish farmers. We've got 1,100 tanks. We'll often have a system, or previously we often had systems that were needing more filtration. We'd doubled the amount of fish, we've fed something or something like that, or big shipments come in. So we wanted this product. It was another reason to do the research and find out
Yep.
why no one else had done it.
Yep.
And everything's impossible until someone does it. That's the thing. Everyone tells you it's not possible to do X, Y, Z. And it was mainly through experience and experimentation that you go, okay, it is possible.
Yep.
The first bioreactor, that's actually the Mark II. The first one was actually a Sulo bin.
Okay.
That was where I did my initial tests to go, can you grow bacteria? Can you transfer it from one media to another media and it's be happy? And yeah, that was successful. We then built this second one that would do 128 foams at a time or something like that.
Yeah, because I remember this one when I first came here, and you had that, and I remember Sean showing me that as that was the secret sauce, effectively, of Tropco.
Absolutely. So this was actually the second iteration. I'd learned an awful lot, from small scale trials. So that's the second attempt, and from there. Funnily enough, we built the Trop house not 100% sure that we could mature foams in a bioreactor.
Oh, wow.
It was a bit of a risk.
I was going to say, so that was a build at risk then?
Yeah, and he's sort of known for that sort of thing. To go, what do you think? I think it's probably doable. Are you
really?
Are you confident? I'm quietly confident.
Yeah.
But it meant we didn't have to drill holes in every tank, didn't have to run pipe work. We'd probably still be drilling holes in tanks now.
Oh, absolutely, with this number.
Yeah, if it wasn't possible. So for that worked great. And now, as you know, we put new foam in with every lot of fish.
Yeah.
The next magnitude of difficulty was being able to post that. So that's the next thing. So hopefully it won't be too odd for people to believe that you can grow bacteria without fish. Yep. I don't think anyone would really argue that was possible.
And I think that's one of the questions we'll come on to. And we'll jump onto that now. So obviously, for us keeping fish at home, our fish are fed by the waste.
Stick the mic closer.
Thank you, boss. So that makes perfect sense. A lot of people will go, the fish in there, the filters that they have, the bacteria in those filters are being fed by the waste from our fish.
Yes.
Now, the big rumour and the big comment I heard is, they're obviously just shipping you basically bottles of, and it's not 9 o'clock, I'm going to say it, bottles of fish shit.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a brown sludgy stuff. It's just fish crap, basically. I know you can't go into detail because obviously what's being done is the secret sauce. And guys, that's not us avoiding the question. That is literally just trade secrets that even I don't know. I'm not saying that I won't tell you guys. I don't know. How are you growing Nitrico? What's it being given? It's not fish crap. That's the important thing.
No, so the really important thing is there's no fish waste in the product at all. It's so important for biosecurity. We couldn't ship this stuff knowing a fish had been anywhere near it. We don't think you could get fish clean enough to ever want to do that. And also, the bacteria need a much higher level of feed than fish would allow. If you kept fish at the level that we keep the reactor at, all of the fish would die.
Right.
So you've got, the higher the feed, the quicker the bacteria will break down. If you're in equilibrium where there's perfect water quality, you grow bacteria quite slowly, as you can imagine. Nature doesn't allow that. If there's excess food, the population will grow. If the food is static, the population plateaus.
Yeah.
So, yes, they're not fed fish waste. Everything, all of the brown stuff is bacteria. I had some slides, I don't think I've got them here today, but of the stuff under a microscope.
Yep.
And you can see it's straw-coloured brown rods.
Yeah.
It is bacteria.
Yeah.
It's all microorganisms. There's no solid in there. When people are flushing their filters and they see a similar brown sludge, most of that probably is bacteria. There's a lot of ash and stuff that goes through a fish that clogs your filter up, which is why you're cleaning it. But most of the stuff, certainly when you in the video where you see scrunching it, that's all bacteria coming out. That is what bacteria looks like. If you look up Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter, you'll see they are a light brown straw-coloured bacterium.
Yeah.
So that is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can vouch on that. You guys know from me that I used to work in microbiology labs, and we would develop, master stocks of Pseudomonas, E. coli, all sorts of different organisms, and they were always a brown sludge. It's just an unfortunate side effect that poo is also brown.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot you can do about that.
That's right.
But I think that's
nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As that's the thing. I think the big thing is to disparage that you're not receiving a bucket of fish shit. I mean, I suppose the equivalent would be, and shoot me down here, guys, is it's almost like when at home, when you clone a filter, you get your sponges, you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and you get all that lovely brown stuff out, and then you throw that in your new tank. And that's been an accepted method for donkey's years, hasn't it? Squeeze your filter foams and pour it in. Job's a good one. I mean, I'm not being unfair. I know there's a bit more cleverness to it than that, but you've effectively developed a commercial version of that.
There's no magic to it at that stage.
100%.
That's a correct analogy.
People, I think some of the people who were very sceptical about this product thought that we were trying to advertise it as some magical bullet. It isn't a magical bullet. You are, if you buy Nitrico Goop, you are buying just what would be in a mature filter. The only difference is there's certainly no fish pathogens in there. There's no ash in there. There's no other waste products that you will get out of fish or fish food. It is just nitrifying bacteria. No different at all.
Yeah. And that's the important bit to look at, is you're not just getting this bottle of fish crap. I think the next question we also get is often is where are the limitations with the product? And I think the big one that I think you hit the nail right on the head, Andy, was the number of times people assume it is a magic bullet.
Yeah.
And you can shove it in a tank that's got a backlog of, say, 6 ppm ammonia, and why the next morning, all of a sudden, Nitrico hasn't magically cleared it all. And I think that's really a good area to move on next, is it's not designed to deal with a massive backlog. But no bacteria colony is designed to deal with a massive backlog.
Yeah,
I mean,
reality.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
It is just a limitation of reality. So actually, it does work great for a backlog. The trouble with ammonia as a backlog, especially at the 26, 27, 28 degrees, nitrous ammonium works so efficiently that actually, some of our foams we've tested will break down 8 ppm ammonia in a day. Well, no problem at all. But in the morning, you will have a very sharp spike of nitro. The trouble is, what people have got to remember is fish produce waste all of the time at a low level. If the goop goes in, or if goop filter goes in with the fish, you shouldn't really see a spike of anything. The two go down in, you never see a spike. The two just go down in, together, basically, parallel. But obviously, if there's a big backlog, one bacteria works so much faster than the other bacteria. It's basically because ammonia has much more energy in it.
Right.
The nitrite is obviously is a waste product, and so the first set of bacteria have harvested the energy from that.
Yep.
Nitrobacter is then about half the speed, mainly because it's so much lower energy density. There's just less to come from it, so it's going to be slower.
Of course.
But that means if you start from a backlog, you will end up with a big backlog of nitrite. So we'd always recommend, if people have got very poor water quality, start with a water change, to be honest with you. Unless you're happy to see a nitrite spike, don't do it. At lower temperature, it seems to be less of an issue. Nitrobacter seems to be slightly better optimised for the lower temperatures. Okay. So there's actually a crossover at which Nitrobacter is better than nitrous ammonium, and you don't get any nitrite spike. So
interesting. So kind of your cold water temps, your temperate tanks.
Don't seem to see it.
tanks, that sort of thing. You don't tend to see a nitrite spike.
Right. Interesting stuff. No, it's good to know. So absolutely. See, I'm not the only one that has dogs on a live stream. For anyone that hasn't met him yet. Hello. We've grown more people. See, it's turning into a party up here.
So
come and say hello.
You have to come. So this is Scotty. Hello. Scotty is the man that picks up the grief from the rest of us. So if we need something built, we need something picked up, we need something sorted, then Scott's the man. He very rarely goes anywhere near fish, to be fair. But he doesn't like fish, unless they've got fingers, Scott? You like fish fingers, don't you?
Fish fingers are all right, and beer's all right.
And beer's good.
But that's your lot. That's good stuff, as it should be. So the dogs are getting all the attention. The number of times I say I don't actually come to Tropco to see Sean, I come to see the dog. So that's the important bit. I haven't asked Sean a question yet. I feel bad here because
Sean, what are you doing here?
I'm home and drink beer.
And also, can I ask Sean one question? Why is that massive snakehead in there? Because I'm really worried it's going to eat something.
No, it's not. It's Dylan's. He brought it down. It's pellet fed. It's purely pellet fed.
Snakehead.
They're not big enough.
Snakeheads are pellet fed until they have something fishy they can get in their mouths.
there is a really gorgeous snakehead opposite me, guys. I can't lie.
They've got the big emperor in the actual tube.
I'll take you for a walk around later, guys. There's some awesome stuff here at the moment, so just keeping an eye out. So So, I mean, next question, I guess I'm going to aim at Sean then. So, obviously, Nitrico's started.
Yes.
You know, it's been on the market.
Yeah.
How often are you actually sending out? Are we, you know, obviously you're in charge of getting these fish packed and out the door.
Yeah.
You know, is it every 1 in 100 orders, 1 in 10? I mean, how often are you shoving this stuff in a box?
Definitely picks up, definitely. Without a doubt, obviously the social media side of things have helped. Even today, so I've worked all day, we've had customers in. I reckon 60% of the customers have probably bought Goop with a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked really well. And then during the week, probably 15 to 20 orders each day, I would have said, probably roughly.
Yeah, fish orders.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. This isn't, you know, you've given it to, you know, me who's local and a few people that you know and all the rest of it. You know, there are people that are ordering. I mean, you've got some bloody expensive fish here. You know, you've got plecos that are hundreds of pounds. You've got koi and things that are equally expensive. You know, it's not all, you know, 50p a go guppies.
It's nice for me, though, being able to put expensive fish into a tank and not have to worry about them. That's the nice thing.
And was that something you used to see, that say someone would come on and buy, you know, a nice, you know, you've got that 200 odd pound pleco that we were just looking at, that L24, and you chip it, and then what? The next week you get an email going, it's dead.
We get a lot of people currently that have put too much in their tank, not generally from us, but generally in general, have got an ammonia spike, and them to sort out the tank is 20 quid. It's incredible, really. Yeah. They might have 700 or 800 pounds worth of fish in there, and then they had a Goop sachet, and it saved them. So yeah, from the fish welfare side of things, it's incredible.
I mean, I've said the same thing. I mean, I know that I won't name names, but there's an LFS not too far from me who they were running these bank systems, and they had a whole bay crash. So they had 9, I think it's either 9 or 12 tanks completely crash out. What they chucked some Goop in, and job was done. I mean, as a business, to lose, you know, 9 tanks of fish, you know, even if they were guppies, it's bloody expensive to suddenly lose 9 tanks. So it's not just us hobbyists. It's, you know, it's the commercial guys as well. So that's where the interest really is. You're not limited to just the guy that's buying the occasional fish, and that's about it. I think the big thing as well is the number of people who don't want to give it a go. I've seen an awful lot, certainly on social media, of people going, it must automatically be rubbish, so I'm going to badmouth it, but not try it.
Yeah.
But I can sort of understand that, being an old boy of the fish game. I did my thesis 31 years ago on biological filtration startup solutions. And in those days, there were sort of almost a mirror image of what we currently have on the shelves for startup solutions. And I did a thesis where I set up a dozen tanks and I tested these products. There was one in those times called made by a company called Dryden Aquaculture, who I think Dryden Aqua are still in business doing other stuff. They're doing bigger, more industrial stuff, I believe. But they did a product that you brewed. And actually, I saw that in those days, that was the only one that showed any impact on ammonia. I think now, looking back on it, it was probably bacillus. But in those days, you know, I tested them all, and I was a bit naive on what else was required, and saw that, you know, that actually there was a product then that broke down ammonia, and I've been sort of interested in this ever since. But yeah, this is not a new problem. Certainly, it's yeah, we've been bullshitting around it for years. And companies have been selling you stuff that really doesn't work. And right now, one thing that we're really hot on now we cannot test this product in everybody's water.
You've beat me to my next question.
Right, we can't test it in everybody's water, but what we are doing now, and Jack's currently dealing with a customer in East Lothian, I think, who contacted us on Friday with 5 tanks. Now, the immediate thing with that customer was he said he's been trying to start the cycle. He moved house in March. He's been trying to start his cycle on his 5 tanks ever since, and it hasn't worked. He'd heard wonderful things about Goop, bought Goop, and it hasn't worked. Now, back to this is not a magic bullet.
I was going to say, that almost proves the point of what's in that pouch is the same as what's in a filter.
Yes. And as Jack spoke to him on Friday and said, look, you know, from where we're coming from, you shouldn't have needed to buy Goop. You know, you've been trying to get your cycle started since March, where in actual fact, we think that there's a mineral deficiency. It's not necessarily soft water. And we do tests all the time. So we are currently testing to see exactly which minerals are vital. And just because you have soft water, or even water that's not particularly soft, it's maybe just 1 or 2 minerals that your water is lacking in that is the reason you're struggling to get a cycle going. And so that's what we're currently working on. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we brought this product out, but it doesn't mean it can replace other things. So we've got to, we pride ourselves on actually working with everybody who fails. Fortunately, it's very, very few. And that's the only way we can do it. If someone contacts us and says, I'm not having any success with Goop, we take that seriously, because we need to work out why. And so, and we've done it in the past, and we're doing it again. And actually, our success rate is pretty damn good. So.
And again, I'll kind of, add credence to that for what it's worth. I mean, I kind of first got involved with Goop. I guess you were a kind of late stage prototype. I mean, I'll give you an example, guys. So I set a tank up. In fact, I've set several tanks up that Francesca on my admin team. I think the first tank I set up for her, I literally took squeezings out of the filter in the digester over here that runs the fish house. I think you did it for me, in fact. And that was kind of my first experience to what comes out of here. And that's from there the conversation went into, look, we're developing this new product. It's a bit hush-hush, but we wouldn't mind giving it a play. And I've used it on a couple of my tanks. Obviously, I'm down in here in Kent. I'm kind of 45 minutes from these guys. My water's rock hard. And I have no problem. I've used it with snakeheads. I've used it with my goby tank. I've used it with puffers in other people's tanks. I've never had a problem. But equally, we wanted to have a bit of a play. So I remember coming and picking some up from Sean and driving it in the car all the way up to the borders. Yeah. And then seeing what happened. In fact, the package that I've got in my Channa tank, so the package of Goop I use for my snakehead, I picked it up on a Friday, drove up to Scotland. So it was it was a room temperature, aircon car temperature for about 8 hours. Shoved it in Francesca's fridge. It sat there for a week. I came back the following week with the Channa on the back seat, and it still worked. I mean, but it was that ability for me to feed back and say, right, actually, Sean, Andy, let Jack know I had it in a fridge for a week, and it still worked. So these guys, if anything, they're being cautious by saying use it within 24 hours. That's them saying to give you the best performance. It's not necessarily a thing. I mean, I've used it a week old with a Channa, with a really high protein diet.
You tested it for 4 weeks.
So there you go. So these guys have done testing at 4 weeks, and the stuff is still alive. So that's the important stuff. Is the guys are constantly doing research, and I think the big difference as well is, these guys aren't just sat here doing it because there's money. I mean, Sean is, your background is what, fish farming and fish management. So Sean's, really, really passionate about his fish. Andy, as he's just said, did his thesis on filtration, so he comes from this background. Jack, obviously, is a fellow microbiologist, a fellow biochemist. It's being developed by people that actually give a damn. And that's the big thing. And you guys are all fish keepers as well. It's not just there's some money to be made. It's you guys are all fish keepers.
There's not money to be made yet, Tom.
You're still making back all the R&D costs.
All my bills, yeah.
I think the next question that we often see is how do I use it? So I'm on your website and I'm looking at a pouch of Goop, and Andy's been really good here in keeping an eye on the feed because I can't bloody see it from over there. So if you see Andy looking down, he's checking for questions, guys. So shove questions up. Andy will spot them and interrupt me where appropriate. The question we always get asked is, what size Goop should I order, and how the bloody hell do I use it? I know you guys give really useful information. There's an A4 sheet that comes in the pack that tells you how to use it. I mean, I've kind of taken an approach of, as long as it gets in the filter, it doesn't really matter. What's your guys' opinion, really?
Yeah. So, with foams, you can just plonk them in. They're airlift. If you put air to them, they work.
Yep.
With the Goop, obviously there's so many different formats of filtration. It's, as you say, it's basically about getting it to stick in your filter. So if your media's brand new K1, you are going to struggle a little bit. And if it's fluidized K1, you're in real trouble because it's just going to get blasted out.
Yep.
If it's foams, you're like inside a fluval pressurized canister or something like that, you can open the sachet underwater and just feed it in so it's gets vacuumed up. At the end of the day, the filter's designed to pull solids out, so the bacteria will end up where they should be. Better still is to open the filter and literally massage the Goop into the foams.
Yeah.
Some will always get discharged out of the return.
Yeah.
Stuff that ends up on the bottom of the tank, generally, There's a few options. If there's fish in there, they'll eat it. It's actually really nutritious, as you can imagine. People have actually approached us to turn this into a superfood, funnily enough. Because
wow.
it really is, it's one of the...
Gobies and that sort of thing. Some of the...
You're preaching the converted, that's what I keep. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's really nutritious. So for the fish, it's not a problem. There obviously is the other side of the balance, which is if the fish are eating something reasonably high protein and it was what was about to filter their water, if they eat too much of it, you've got a lot of waste that will come out the back end of the fish, and suddenly you've got no bacteria in your filter anymore. So you've got to be a bit careful. You don't want it all getting eaten, basically. If you can keep most of it in the media, you're laughing.
I like these live stream. Look, someone hands me the beer. That's a new one. I think I'm going to have Andy come round in future for live streams. It's the only answer.
I just bust that while trying to open the bottle. So.
He has just buggered his vape, unfortunately. So, that's what we're going to have to buy some goop now so Andy can afford a new vape. It's the only answer. So,
It's just about hurting, Phil.
if you hear a loud ow and then someone has to ring off for first aid, that's why. So, get it in the filter and see what happens. I mean, in terms of which pouch do I need, and I'll make this your problem because you've had some time off. How do I know which pouch to order? What's the best approach? Would you say?
Well, they're set for tank size anyway, but we're here to answer any questions regarding the stocking of the tank, and it sort of comes down to bioload more than anything. So if you've got, I'll take the carp side for example, a 20-inch koi, a 50-gram pouch is not going to do the job for it. So neon tetras, for example, I think one of our filters which go into, we could probably house about 200 neon tetras on one foam filter, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And we're happy to run two foams on the free bays which we've got here. They're 65 litres.
Yep.
And we'll probably put 150 to 200 neons per sort of two foams.
Yeah.
So, like all things, guys, again, and that's one of the things I like about working with Tropco is, and I'm not saying this because I get some sort of special treatment. They are responsive on social media, and I would say, ask them, message them. Sorry, sure, Andy's jumping at the bit, so hold on.
No. All it is about dosaging of goop. Now we have set our pouches to be capable at 26 degrees centigrade of breaking down 2 ppm ammonia in that volume of water. Now 2 ppm ammonia tends to be a pretty heavily stocked tank. So we've tried to set the bar at a reasonably heavy stock, not massive loads of carnivores or anything like that, but reasonably heavy stock tank. And that is how we've sort of tried to gear our pouches. Obviously, it's not easy to, the customers tend to want a figure. Can I put I've got a 150 litre tank, give me a pouch for that. It's not necessarily that easy, which is why, as Sean says, we're here to answer questions. If anyone ever has any doubt of how much goop to put in, give us a ring, and we'll say, you're putting a load of bloody snakeheads in there and you're going to be feeding them dead goldfish. You need a lot of goop. It's that sort of concept. So we tried to give it an idea, a guide, but it is just a guide.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and you bring a very good point as well, is you look at a lot of the old style, the fishless cycle, the traditional fishless cycle. You're not going to add anything. You're going to buy a bottle of ammonia, and you're going to dose it, and it's going to take you, 6, 8, 10 weeks, something like that. Originally, that was done at 4 ppm, and that was the golden figure. Now, where that figure came from, I don't know, but 4 ppm was the golden figure. And I mean, I started off suggesting 4 ppm. If you guys know me from years ago, from past groups, I would always say to you 4 ppm. And actually what I've learned as time's gone on is 4 ppm is a really bad number because it's way heavier than any aquarium is ever going to see under normal circumstances. And all you end up with is nitrite spikes and having to continually water change day in, day out because your nitrite's gone through the roof. Yeah. So that's the thing now. 2 ppm represents, for your average fish keeper, more than that tank is actually going to be seeing. There are going to be exceptions, and there's going to be those of you sat there going, well, I've got, as Andy said, 50 carnivores, and, they eat half a goat a day each, and they chuck out loads of ammonia. Yeah, that's the exception. But for your standard hobbyist who's got a 60, 80, 100, 200, 300 litre tank, 2 ppm is more than enough. So that's the big thing. Anything on the questions?
Yeah, Tony Dixon says it is goop a one-time thing. So goop cannot make up for an inadequate filter. But if you have got adequate filtration, adequate oxygenation, and adequate KH, your pH is reasonable. You know, you need an aquarium that's suitable for life, basically.
Yeah.
Providing you've got those things, you will only ever have to add goop once.
Yeah.
The reason that people might have a crash tends to be because one of those things drops out. And that's also what goop is handy for, but it won't fix a tank that's not suitable for life. So,
and that's the thing, the number of times again, so here we're looking at KH, so old tank syndrome. So you've got really soft water, certain parts of Scotland. Carol on my admin team is in Glasgow. I think she's lucky to get KH1 out of her tap, so she has to either keep fish differently, and there are different cycles, you know, traditional, there are cycles that can exist right down at pH4, pH5, but they're not the cycles that 95% of us are running. She has to be really careful. Fran saw the same thing, so Fran I think gets about KH 2 or 3 at best out of her tank. Her pH is in the 6s at best, and for her she might see, for example, the occasional nitrite spike for the first couple of days of using goop. But you guys don't hide that. That's you appreciate that is sometimes a limitation of the product.
yeah, I mean, the trouble is that we are only producing bacteria. We haven't changed the bacteria. We can't make the bacteria super bacteria. You know, we can keep them clean, we can send them out as, you know, as ready to go as possible, but they're still the same raw material. So if you could crash your old filter, you can crash goop.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible to do. So, we've got any more questions coming up, Mr. Lintop?
Kelly says we should have freshwater fish keeping bottle openers after she saw me smashing the vape.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, so Tony is currently trying to cycle. What I'll do, Tony, is currently trying to do a fish-in cycle on a 345 fluval shaker. Probably the best thing I'll do for you, Tony, is I'll drop you a message afterwards, and we'll see if we can help you out. You know, yeah, let us know your water parameters, and we'll see what we can do for you. What else is there? Yeah, Francesca gets 6.2 pH normally.
There you go.
Yeah, bacteria going to struggle. So, John Sharp, the bacteria will love your water. Most of the fish you try to keep won't love your water. You've got a KH of 17 to 20. The bacteria will love it. They don't even need to look around for minerals, right? But you are very limited, as I'm sure you know, on what you can keep in the water. But the bacteria won't be your problem. Your cycle will stay stable.
Yeah.
If anything, you'll have a super stable cycle because you've got so much KH. Your pH might be ridiculously high, but it ain't going anywhere. You would struggle to ever hit old tank syndrome. So if anything, well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm a hard water fish keeper. You know, not as hard as that. Mine sits around 10. I've gone away for 2 or 3 weeks on holiday, done no water changes, and my KH has dropped by 1. For me, that doesn't matter. For someone who's only got 2 or 3 in the tank to start with, losing 1 is a problem. Yeah. That's the important bit here. So, I guess what we're trying to get at really is, everyone else, that's good. It means we're answering the questions before they get asked. So, that's the thing here, guys. Nitrico, Andy hit the nail on the head. Nitrico is not a magic bullet. They've not invented a new bacteria in a lab somewhere. You know, it is a fancier version, and I don't mean to dumb it down because I know how many years went into this. It is a fancier version of what we hobbyists do when we clone a filter. That's what it is at its heart. And what I would say to you is give it a go. You know, there is I mean, how much is the little tiny pouch? It's a few quid. It's like a £5 or something, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's like 3 or 4 quid.
Yeah. And I've said to people before, you know, if you're worried, buy the little pouch, shove it in your tank, and for example, buy a bottle of ammonia and feed it 0.5 ppm.
Be a scientist.
Yeah, be a scientist about it. And I'm going to ask Andy's most loved question after this, but buy it, feed it a little bit of ammonia, and convince yourself that it's working before you put your fish in. There's no reason you can't do that. 7 quid. There we go for the little one.
We should know the price of our products.
You really should.
We just develop it.
Now I'm going to ask the question here that I know winds you up, and it winds me up as well because I've come from the same thing. And you'll see this time and time again. Why are there not loads of independent studies and independent papers under lab conditions proving this product works? So, funny enough, when we started doing our literary research on
on nitrifying bacteria, the vast majority of the work that's been done is in the 50s and 60s, which astounded us really, that very little, for such important groups of bacteria, very little work had been done. The truth of the matter is now, we would love a university to take Goop, to work with it. As soon as we pay for something, that can no longer be sold as independent. So there's, we can't say to a university, here, we'll pay you to do some work on our Goop. No, that's no longer independent, and everyone will appreciate the fact that we've paid for that. So we, I don't know what I'm trying to say really. Yeah, I would love people to take on Goop. I would love people to test Goop. We've done a huge amount of work ourselves. We have invested, a lot of money.
Considerable sums.
A lot of money in making sure that we get this right. It wasn't, sadly for us, I would have loved it to have been squeeze some sponges out, put it in an envelope and post it out to you guys. That's not quite how it works. We've done a huge amount of our own research. We know what we're selling. We would love other people to take it on.
And that's the big thing, is the minute you sponsor a piece of research, I would naturally go, well, of course, I'll give you two perfect examples, guys, and there are papers that you can look at. There was a great paper done back in the 40s that showed smoking tobacco wasn't that bad for you. The sponsor was one of the tobacco companies. They'd sponsored it. We've seen it before. API had a paper done on Melafix that showed how amazing it was. Mars Fish Care, who own API, paid for the research. And I can't help but immediately go, well, is that actual research, or was that, I'm not suggesting anything, I'm not slagging anyone off, but you can't automatically assume that was done cleanly. And so the minute you turned around and said to, I don't know, University of Durham or University of Kent or something, here's some Goop, we'll pay for you to play with it, tell us what you think, and then you get a paper going, it's amazing, even I, knowing you guys, would go, that's a bit fishy, no pun intended, that's a bit too easy. You've paid for it and you've got the answer that you want. So that's what I'm saying. The best thing that we can do is test it ourselves as fish keepers. And these guys are sending out hundreds of pouches, thousands of pouches since the stuff came onto the market. If it was that rubbish, they wouldn't be in business. They'd have hundreds of people coming after them going, you've killed £1,000 of discus or £100 pleco or something, and it's just not the case.
So we have back to the dosing thing. Sorry, I was just reading some of the comments. Back to the dosing. Now, one thing that actually we were very green about, and Tom will vouch for this because I actually asked him a few questions. In the early days, we're fish people, right? It's what we do. And in order to be able to keep the number of fish around this farm that we do, we deal with filters. But we're predominantly fish people. And so look out, the hand of the Baskervilles has gone. So in the early days of this, in our testing with freshwater fish keeping, we suddenly came across aquatic soil. We came across root tabs. We came across plant fertilizers. We had no concept of the amount of ammonia that these things, when they're new, put in your water.
And also the amount of KH they eat as well with aquarium soil. It's double-edged sword. You've got ammonia being released and KH being eaten. You can't win. And as you say, you haven't got planted tanks out here. You're fish farmers.
We were very green to that. We really were. We thought, well, you've got people out there filling their tank full of ammonia, excreting soil. It was a massive new one on us. So that was a big learning curve for us. And and possibly in the early days, we certainly didn't see that coming in the early days. I didn't realise that people would start a new tank and it was the soil that was producing 10 times as much ammonia as the fish were. That was a new one. So, anyone who got caught up in having ammonia problems and nitrite, actually it wasn't really ammonia, it was more nitrite spikes, and us sort of scratching our heads trying to work out what had happened, I apologise for that. We weren't ready for that. It was a bit of an eye-opener.
And the thing, again, kudos to you, is you were happy to go, shit, we didn't think of that, we didn't know. The number of companies that would just ignore that, but you guys actually took that on board from the hobby and went, these planted tank keepers are onto something here, we need to look at this. And I know the next day that I said it, you messaged me back and said, well, we've just ordered Tropco soil, ADA soil, every blooming soil we get our hands on, and Jack was going to be playing with it.
Yeah.
So
it turns out it's like manure at the end of the day. And it makes sense for planted tanks to, for your tomatoes, you'd put manure on them. for your aquascapers, you do the same thing. We didn't know it might release 4 ppm overnight. And obviously that's got to be broken down. The bacteria love the environment, but you're obviously going to end up, that's 10 times what the fish would have produced. You end up with very high ammonia initially, then very high nitrite, and it was a head scratcher to begin with. To go, are people selling manure to put in aquariums, and it turns out,
yes, they are.
Instead of fish waste, it's probably animal waste or synthetic, probably a fertilizer. And you go, right, well, that's something for the bacteria to feed on. They're going to have to break that down as well. So, it's a learning curve. Yeah, that's it. We can't know everything, obviously, and it's only as it comes up, it's got to be case by case. And it's nice, we know most of the people who've had problems on a first name basis. I would think we
know
can
anyone who speaks to us.
Exactly that.
So we don't just ignore anyone.
No, if anyone does have problems, fortunately, it's 99.9% no problems at all. The fringe cases, we really want to hear from because
Drums of water from people, haven't we? We've people sending us drums of water down to test. All sorts
from Preston, just because it's a really soft water area. And
I was up there the other week. You should have told me. I'd have brought a bucket back from the hotel.
No, we shipped out an empty 5-gallon drum and had it returned, just so we could run up a tank this end to test was there something wrong with the water. And again, it was very, very soft, very low mineral, and we managed to get it cycled at this end. Worked out what the issue was, sent the fix. And now she's happily keeping 2 axolotls in her tank. So
fingers crossed. What more can you ask for?
Funny enough, talking about axolotls, that's another one of our testings that we're doing at the moment. In the last, thanks Kelly, I think you're there. In the last few days we've had some really interesting test results with axolotls, and we're hoping that in the coming weeks, maybe months probably, but we will be able to possibly send out some kind of axolotl supplement that will help things. Axolotls are a very interesting species, and their waste isn't fish waste. And we've developed our goop for fish waste. So, and that was another way that I was naive. I was naive in thinking that axolotls shit the same as you and I. They don't. And so we're working on that. We will crack that as well.
I mean, goop was 4 years to get goop to where it is today. You're not going to crack axes overnight, but the fact that you're willing to go, it doesn't work, we're going to make it work. You don't get that from a lot of companies. Right then, guys, any more then? Any last minute questions? I always try and keep these live streams to kind of 30, 60 minutes somewhere there. It just makes it a bit less painful for anyone watching it on catch up. And also for us sitting in 26 degrees in here?
Yeah, 27,
27 degree fish house. Yeah, they absolutely are.
They are pretty incredible, to be fair.
They are. I'll tell you what, while you guys are thinking of questions, should we go and have a quick look at a couple of tanks while we're here? I know we said this wasn't a Tropco live stream, but let me take you guys out of there. So, let's go and look at a few fish here. I'm just going to turn you around. What have we got here then, Sean?
Manica Packaroo Angels, which I've been staring at the whole time we've been doing this live stream because they're incredible.
They are stunning. Yeah, I was going to say, guys, we've turned all the air off for a short while because otherwise you wouldn't hear us. So don't worry that the filters are off. It's deliberate. They're going back on in a minute. What else you got, Sean?
Wild Brazilian Angel, Discus.
Wild Discus. Amazing. What a lovely colour.
All the there.
I mean, look at all these guys. They're just stunning. I love them. I don't keep Discus, and even I find these guys pretty. So, there's just some amazing fish. There really is.
Yeah, this one was actually quite incredible with the wilds as well.
Yeah.
Yellow Marlboros.
Yeah.
Bugs,
We bring you down a bit further.
Super Red Angels.
Look, I'm not running any filters on this, guys, and there's no fancy lighting in here. This is just bog standard LED lighting. So, it's not even above the tank. There's nothing above there. Look, there's no magic going on. That's how gorgeous they are, just on their own. So,
Nice goldfish in there.
a few goldies for you pond lovers.
Some nice sized ones.
They're a good size. We like those. A few clowns, lovely fish. I put a photo up these the other day that we saw out at one of the aquaria getting on for full size. They're just amazing. Peacocks, for those of you that like your African cichlids, I know nothing about these guys, so, obies. So, what else we got? We're just having a quick wander. I know it is. All the guys that work here are really unnerved how quiet this is. So there's just loads of stuff, guys. It really is worth you coming and have a look. Quick question for you, Sean. Out of curiosity, on average, how many bristle noses do you keep in stock?
Bristle nose, bristle nose, bristle nose.
There you go.
That's 3 tanks there.
There's 3 tanks just of bristle noses, and you guys have got about, what, 8 different kinds of bristle nose? I've seen like the regulars, the snows, the super reds, long fin, short fin.
Then obviously you've got the different sizes as well. Probably about 100 to 150.
Between 100 and 150 floating around.
I'd say on average in the room there's probably about 27,000 fish at one time.
27,000 fish. I mean, look, there's even, everywhere you look, there's a new interesting fish. 134s there. So they're amazing.
Some there as well, they're quite pretty.
Absolutely amazing. There we are, guys. Well, as I said, I wasn't going to turn this into a Tropco live stream, but we had to have a quick look around while we were here. Look at these, my current new love channers. Look at these guys, and most importantly, look, the 4-legged members of the Tropco team. That you can't really look. He does love his dad. As you can tell, this is Sean's dog, so he's like, Dad, Dad, Dad. It's absolutely amazing. Well, there you go, guys. Here's a quick special from the world of Tropco. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been useful. We're coming up just on the hour mark, so we're going to call it quits there. So let me quickly turn you back around. So thank you very much to this man here for letting us into his business. We do appreciate it. Thank you to that man there for showing us his fish. And Jack, the man who knows everything.
Make it up if I don't.
There we are. If not, he bullshits better than I do, and I'm a salesman.
Yeah, I'm still here, so.
And he's still here as well. Hey, it's all good. Thank you, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.